About losing Fort Mason, and that's why we're here. They want to demonstrate their solidarity, their community. This is what you're seeing now is a real sense of community. These people have been together for years at Fort Mason, and we got 2 models who agreed to come, so we're drawing. What we're saying is we have no place to go. That's what we're saying. City College needs to stay at Fort Mason so that we, as a community, need to stay together, whole, productive, involved, supportive, and the rest of it. Now, all these people here, and there are over 30, are the people that show up week in and week out at Fort Mason. That is the only place on the north end that will serve these students here. And for City College to think, oh well, they can go to the Mission campus, or they can come out here, or they can go to Chinatown. They're not going to do that. This is a group that's used to working together. They work together at Fort Mason, have done that for over 40 years. We have been there. So this is a statement that they're making. And actually the artwork is pretty good if you walk around and see some of the things that they're doing. And it's just, this is the first time they've been together since, I guess it was right after Thanksgiving that we were told that, we're not going to have Fort Mason anymore. So for these people to be together, working together, is really touching my heart, and I'm sure theirs too. So that's what's going on out here. That's why it's going on. And they'll keep talking about this until a final decision is made. But we're doing an outreach. We're trying to get the city attorney involved at this point. This is very serious to these people. Really, very, very serious what City College is trying to do.
My name's Titania, and I work as an art model, and I've worked at Fort Mason, the City College campus, and it would be awful if Fort Mason's arts program closed. It provides like a relief for so many seniors. That's who are the people in most of the classes that I work in are seniors. So I'm here to support both the teachers and the students who I work with at Fort Mason, because arts funding is really about funding. It's really about funding how much value we place in our own humanity, because that's what the arts is about. It's about valuing our humanity. So that's why I'm here.
Hi, how are you doing?
Because I'm not doing, all I'm doing is
Hello. I can't hear very well. I'm telling you, I miss our art groups, our classes. I went my first year at City College, and that was 1966 to 67, my first year of college. And now my kids, who are, I worked here for from 1978 to 2012 and a half, and I worked here, I was a teacher here, and I took art classes here. I've taken them all the 34 years I taught here. And my kids are graduating their first 2 years here. I have 24-year-old twins. They're just finishing up. And this school has been my life. And I'm so sad. I believe in communitarianism. Communitarianism, when we help each other. And, you know, I feel like our leaders are failing us, because this is a jewel that should keep alive, keep sparkling, and they want to take away this land here and back and privatize it, and they can build somewhere else. They don't need to take part of City College. They don't need to throw away all what's beautiful with the art classes and the senior classes. I think it's such a shame. Sherry McAdam, and I taught here almost 34 years, and my kids going here, I mean, I have a tradition here. And I used to sub for the art classes. I taught how to speak English, and that's for older adults as well, and younger adults, the non-credit programs. This is all part of our community. The people who come here need those classes to survive and learn and be part of the community. And this artistic community is part of the community as our elders. And it's so wrong to stop that. We voted for that land to be a performing arts center, and they took the money, they want to do something else with it, okay? They're tearing down other buildings, closing up outside sites where I've taught and where I've taken art classes and substitute for art classes. I taught people how to speak English. I think how to speak English is pretty important here, but the arts have always been important in San Francisco, because San Francisco City and county is one entity, and we need this. We need this to survive. We contribute, so this is part of all our communitarianism here.
I'm Harry Bernstein. I'm an instructor in the music department. So for me, there's two subjects here. One is the whole history of that space, which goes back to the before California became a state, and it came into public sphere when when the city bought out the Spring Valley Water Company in 1930, and then it's been PUC asset ever since then. From 1946 to 1954, it was West Campus, and that really was a shot in the arm of the very young City College. Anyway, there's all that history, but what's happening now was that in 2013, there was a state takeover of City College, which got rid of the democratically elected board, and the next couple years is exactly when there was a start on this project, the Balboa Reservoir project. It was supposed to be just 500 units, because that was the Balboa Park Station area plan. Looked all around this area and tried to find where were places for housing, and they assessed that the upper lot and the lower lot, one would have 425 units, one maybe 500. But later on, as this project got going and they put out a bid for developers, I guess the PUC thought that the one they liked was one that had twice as many, 1,100 units. And that's been pretty consistent. One of my concerns is about this company, 50% of the units are market rate, and those are being built by Avalon Bay, and all the others are being foisted off on, I guess, bridge housing and mission housing, and it's good for them, except that the city is providing them extra money to make that possible. But I'm looking at Avalon Bay. It's a mega corporation. I mean, they've got residential units all over the country, but they're mostly market rate, mostly no rent control, and they have a very poor attitude toward, people come in and get a 1-year lease, and then the next year they're told, well, the algorithm says that this is your new rent. It doesn't matter whether it's affordable, whether it's reasonable by city standards or anything, and they just impose that. So what's disturbing is to have this public land, 17 acres, and what's happening at the Planning Commission, at least so far, next Thursday, the 28th, is to get ready to do several things to approve the CEQA project. In other words, the environmental, to pass off on that, and to make the first official steps to impose a special use district. And that would allow private ownership of this public land. And then they're planning to, if people have seen the illustrations, 78-foot towers, it just, outsize something like 10 times the density of the nearby Westwood Park. But I have the question of whether this company, which doesn't treat its residents very well, is deserving of the enormous subsidies. I believe the subsidies they're getting from for the 17% so-called affordable is $43 million. Okay, and the developer is asking for an 11-foot wide strip of land, probably to be given to them. They have all kinds of, special deals, because they were supposed to be communicating with the college and making an arrangement, a memorandum of understanding between the city and the college, and that just fizzled a couple years ago. And the developer is saying, well, it's up to the college to pursue that. We don't care. And I don't know, there's a number of issues that all kind of tie together. But we need to have a massive, two possible things, either showing up virtually at the commission meeting, but also ask them not to postpone next Thursday's hearing, because the development agreement is incomplete and the parking data is inaccurate, and this memorandum of understanding does not exist. So there's all kinds of reasons that it's not ready for prime time.
Well, I'm Peter Warfield. We have a little group, Equity for Older Students, reachable at equityforolderstudents@protonmail.com. And we're very concerned about the class cuts, especially the tremendously disproportionate cuts in the older adult program, where more than 90% of the classes have been cut. There's also a lot of other class cuts. They made 300 cuts in November, 300 class cuts. Now they've added ESL to those cuts and so on. And I'm hearing that there are even more class cuts happening that I haven't officially heard about yet. There's a whole, what I would consider to be a hidden agenda to, looks like, turn City College into a junior college or more of a junior college, and less or not at all a community college. We understand community college to mean something for everybody, a chance for everybody to learn things, to get skills upgraded in professional or commercial kinds of places as well as academic ones. And people who went to college even just 10 years or 20 years ago, even in the areas of their majors or their professional training, might have considerable changes going on. But they're cutting all but what seems to be programs that allow people to get an AA degree, a 2-year degree, or to transfer into a 4-year place, 4-year college. They also want to get rid of Fort Mason, which is a long story of basically untruths being told to the public. So for example, 3 years ago, we had the interim chancellor, Susan Lamb, come to our Fort Mason campus to say they were going to get rid of that campus. It was costing them too much money. They said it would be $3.5 million to make it comply with the so-called Field Act. But right away there was a question, did the Field Act really apply to Fort Mason? A lot of us made a noise about it, came to meetings of the Board of Trustees. By June, they had a new study saying that instead of $3.5 million to bring it up to code, it would take $16 million. And then when I questioned specifically at a Board of Trustees meeting, I said, if you need to fix this place up according to the Field Act, what is your timetable? What is your program? What are the requirements? Obviously you can't do it overnight, so there might be a phased implementation. And the chair looked at the lawyer, somewhat puzzled, and the lawyer turned to them and to the chair and to the trustees and said, we'll talk about this in closed session. And we never heard about it for 3 years. This was Bruckman? This was Bruckman, Steve Bruckman. We never heard about it. Well, he's a staunch guard dog for the trustees, but he's also part of their continual, frequent, and gross violators of open government law and open government principles. They have, on an ongoing basis with his assistance, violated open government law. They have, for example, not taken public comment on every agenda item as it comes up, which is what they learned at a seminar in January that was specifically set up for the trustees to understand what the requirements are of open government law. They are supposed to take public comment before or during every agenda item, and they don't do that. They think that they're qualifying this by having a procedure that says we're going to have public comment at the beginning of meetings only once, but they don't even do that. They don't even take public comment at the beginning, or haven't. They would take public comment after doing a number of items, including approval of the minutes. Most recently, they suddenly changed their public comment rules for Zoom meetings. Instead of taking them by email, on the third of 3 meetings last Thursday, the 14th of May, they suddenly decided they're only going to take public comment from Zoom meeting attendees. Well, what about the people that don't have a computer? I was on the telephone. I had sent my email comment in. They did not read it. The chair airily said, John Rizzo airily said, well, if people want to send an email to the trustees, they can do that anytime. Well, that's not public comment. So they've worked to change or exclude and minimize public comment on an ongoing basis.
First, want to clarify a few things that I've heard. We're not choosing someone because of their ethnicity. And I really feel that's inappropriate. That's not what we do here. That's actually against the law. We're not doing that. So I just first want to say no to that. I also want to say that this isn't about politics. And based on my love for this school, that's why I'm doing this. It's not about politics. The other thing that I want to say is that we have a mosaic of interests that we have to deal with and look at whenever we're making a decision about the college. I've talked to tons and tons of people. We've received hundreds of emails. We've gone over hundreds of pages of documents. We've looked at past articles from Pasadena City College. We've talked to faculty, students, staff at Pasadena we looked at the other colleges, we've really done our due diligence. And so I also want to say to that point that we have done our homework and that we have not taken this lightly. So when people say we have new information to provide, we've actually got reports that folks don't have, that we're provided, that gives us some more insight that is not available to the public. So we've worked really, really hard on this. And I know that a lot of folks have spent a lot of time, our classified staff as well, and their work in this process. Them as well for their participation. I want to thank AFT and the faculty and everyone for all of our participation, our administrators. All of us have spent a lot of time on this issue. I know the salary comment's been touched on. We actually are the lowest. We're at the lowest for the Bay 10. So we just want to clarify that the decision that the salary is at right now, that is the lowest for the Bay 10. And that is a lot of money, but this is a really difficult job. And City College is not an easy place to work. Being a chancellor and being in that leadership position, having to deal with all these constituencies coming at you quite like what we're tonight, it's not an easy thing. And I've been a student here and I love this school, and we do have our problems. We do have a lot of healing and a lot of work to do, and it's going to be really hard, and it's going to take all of us. It's not one person that has ever saved City College. It's been all of us together fighting multiple chancellors, going through numerous administrations to really get us to the place we are now. So that's not going to stop. One person is not going to stop the show. It's the whole city of San Francisco that has gotten City College to where we are now. So I think that I understand the fear, but we have been organizing for years, and we are still here. And that's because of all of us have been a part of this process. And all of us on this board, I would say we have the most progressive board we've ever had in the history of City College. And we're making this decision because we believe it is the best decision for us at this time. And we've looked into all those accounts, and things are more nuanced than what they seem. Things are not as black and white as they seem. At times, all of us have employment histories. All of us have a lot of things we could say about each other in our past, but we still deserve a chance. A lot of people can say things about a number of the constituent groups here and how they behaved in the past, and things that have happened that have not been for the best interest of maybe students or for another group. We have to look at things from the broad perspective, and where we are now is that we need stable leadership. This is the first time in 4 years this board has been able to select a chancellor. It has been special trustee after another special trustee. We've had interim after interim. We need someone with the skill set to be able to move us forward. And that's the kind of decisions that we have to make sitting in this seat. We can't succumb to politics. We can't succumb to rumors. We have to be able to look at everything and do what is the responsible choice and be free from influence of politics. And that's how I came to this decision. I love this college with all of my heart. I don't want to make a career out of saving City College either. But I have. I've been here for a number of years now serving in this capacity, and I have been committed for hours upon hours to this school because I love this city and I love this college with all my heart. And I think folks know that. This is not an easy decision for us to make. We're not sleeping at the wheel. I know some of the comments I've heard and things, it actually hurts because you know us. You know that if we're making a decision like this is what we got to do. Because that's where we're at. And it's like, as much as we love the college, we are in a tough place in terms of recruiting folks that can come in here and be able to do the job. So I want people we talked about mutual trust. We are elected by the people of San Francisco to look at the institution as a whole. That is a responsibility that we have, and we can't take it lightly. We're sad about busting the union. This isn't about busting the union. I've known Steve Zelser for many, many years. We've worked and organized together. No one wants to bust the union. No one wants to harm any constituency at this college. We are trying to do the best thing that we can do and make the most responsible decision. I do not think an interim is a good choice right now. I don't believe that. And going out for another search upon search upon search, where does it end?
I don't think we can stop people from photographing us. So I'm just gonna be like, it's okay, actually. How does that feel for you? Debbie? It's okay if people photograph us. It seems like we're not gonna be able to stop. It's okay. People, it's for a rally. Like,
Is that Joan? Are you going to go home and get your stuff? 5 years.
You like
Oh, I love it.
So there's been a notice of Brown Act violation against the Board of Trustees, and the reason for it is they first, on the 23rd of March, they removed him and put him on administrative leave. And then on the 26th, they had a closed session, and they were supposed to be evaluating him. It said that they might either remove him or discipline him, a number of possibilities. But what they did was complete their negotiations for how much he should be paid. They said he had 2 years of on his contract, and they agreed to pay him for one of those. So $341,000 plus all kinds of medical benefits and other expenditures, meaning his total payout was about $400,000. The problem was, according to the authority that they quote in the Brown Act, and I don't have the numbers with me, but it says that the negotiations of compensation must be done in the open. They are not to be done in closed session. So that's a violation. And that same sort of thing happened with Mark Rocha when he was president superintendent at the Pasadena City College. And in that case, the board and the college were sued, and Rocha had to give back the money. There was another lawsuit, and that allowed him to keep the money eventually. But there was actually a process where, because of the same sort of violation, doing things in secret that should have been done in public, that the offer was rescinded. Now, it's upsetting that neither the Chancellor, the interim Chancellor Diana Gonzalez, nor any of the members of the board has responded to this. What they're supposed to do is acknowledge the error. They're supposed to rescind the offer and then say that they will never do it again. But that is not what they did. Able to find some private comments that Shanell made, and what she said basically is she completely denied there was any Brown Act violation. And in my mind, since she's running now for re-election as a trustee, that makes her unfit, I think, for that office, because she doesn't even know the codes that underlie their processes. Many of their board meetings have closed sessions in which they use the same Brown Act provision, and they can rely on it for authority, but they can't even follow its mandates. So that's...
What do you think about Rocha getting $400,000? What do you think about Rocha getting $400,000?
It's the way that it was done. Goes back to an earlier alleged violation from 2018. the board met. They went to closed session, but they mentioned on the agenda all the different groups, stakeholders, the classified staff, the faculty, department chair council, stationary engineers. There's about 7 or 8 of them, and they listed them all, that there would be some kind of negotiator for them, and they added the word chancellor. It turned out what they were really doing is something that was in the chancellor's contract, to give him an evaluation, to award him a $20,000 bonus, give him a COLA, and then they added, unnecessarily, 2 years to his contract. His contract should have ended on June 20th, which means 3 months after his resignation. Instead, they said, oh, he has 2 years to run. That should not have happened. But again, the board did not respond to that Brown Act violation, and there wasn't a legal pursuit of them to force them to do it. So I think it's completely inappropriate. The 2 years was made only because it was illegal. But there's never been a reference to that in any way. They're just accepting it. And now, especially with $27 million of deficit and talking about cutting classes just unconscionably, it would be something like 50 or 60% of the part-time faculty over a period of a year and a half. Fortunately, Phil Ting from the Assembly is now saying we have to reprioritize. You're trying to cut classes. We say that the colleges should cut administrative staff, not the students, student services, and not faculty.
And you raised an issue of a conflict of interest with Rocha, and he touched you, he threatened you.
Oh, there was yes, I had spoken at a Board of Trustees meeting and just raised the question of the fact that Mark Rocha's wife was working for ACOM and that he had gone out of his way to push them as a consultant for a particular contract. And it turns out that the Facilities Committee chose another agency, and he, I was told, forced a second vote to see if he could have them change their mind. And they still came up with the other company, which is Kitchell, I think, which is the current consultant for facilities. But Rocha really pleaded for something for ACOM. Couldn't they have some sort of contract? Because, you know, he had, I'm not sure if he had worked for them, but definitely his wife has. She's working for them now. And he went out of his way to do that. So I just wondered, wasn't there some potential conflict of interest? And when he left on a break that day, he just came over to where I was on the way out and pushed me back against the chair and said, you know, I want an apology, because he thought I maligned his wife, and I didn't do that in any way. But that was it. And I should have stood up for myself and said, you know, get your hands off me. But I was just so surprised because I didn't expect any interaction. But that's, you know, that's an old story right now. But people told me how the extraordinary way that he responded, just physically sitting in his chair. So, and I just wonder if there wasn't something there. But he hasn't had to answer for it.
The chair or the president of the board, Shanell Williams, these board members, what did they think about this corruption and conflicts of interest? It was raised to them.
Well, it seems to help them. They just have to know where the power lies and align with it. Because Raphael Mandelman is giving them a model. Several of them have, several of the trustees have run for either mayor or supervisor in the past, and he's the one who's been able to do it successfully. I'll just mention one person, Tom Temprano, who I saw a questionnaire that he filled out in 2016, and he said there's too much of the meetings that take place in closed session, and he was going to be a terrific advocate for students and fight against the tax cuts. He's not doing that at all.
Thank you.